A Time of Terror by Alan W. Eckert. May 4th, 1964. In mid-March of 1913, the stage was set for tragedy in Dayton, Ohio, and the preliminaries began with the development of three great air masses, each 1,000 miles or more distant from the other two. The first was an eddy of wind spawned in the tropical air of the Gulf of Mexico. It grew into a stiff, warm wind which headed northward, crossing the Florida coastline at Panama City and Tallahassee, and then sliding easily across Georgia, bringing summer-like weather to Atlanta. Its speed increased as it funneled through the Cumberland Gap and brought unseasonably warm temperatures to Lexington and Frankfort, Kentucky. It raced across the Ohio River at Cincinnati and then sped northward toward Dayton. Another eddy began in the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, drifted slowly toward Quebec as it swiftly grew to gale proportions and then hurled itself southward past Montreal and Ottawa and Toronto. It was an ice blast of frigid Canadian air when it howled through Detroit, and at Toledo the temperature plummeted. It then headed due southward toward Dayton. The third eddy formed in the northern Great Plains and quickly became a wind of hurricane force in central Nebraska, ripping and tearing a great swath through the dormant fields. It struck Omaha on Easter Sunday and dealt the city a devastating blow, leaving thousands homeless and hundreds injured, a few dead. As if satisfied with this venting of its wrath, it lost some of its strength and became only a gusty weather front filled with angry clouds. The frightful flash of lightning and tortured rumblings of thunder as it passed Des Moines and roared across Illinois, buffeting Peoria and Springfield, then increasing in vigor again as it neared Indianapolis. It paused there momentarily, gathered its resources for the contest ahead, and then moved due eastward toward Dayton. These three great air masses collided over a wide expanse of farmland, and their battleground extended almost to Indianapolis in the west, Fort Wayne and Lima in the north, Columbus to the east, and at the southern edge, Dayton. In the 2,500 square miles of ground over which this contest of the elements was being staged, a saturation point had already been reached. There had been a general thawing, and the ice and snows of a hard winter had melted and seeped into the ground. On top of this, several light rains had fallen until now, in the third week of March. No more moisture could be absorbed into the ground, and the water had to run off into the multitudes of ditches and creek beds throughout the countryside. The rainfall to the west of Dayton eventually became part of the inconsistent stream called Wolf Creek. In the northwest, the runoff went into the numerous tributaries of the normally serene and beautiful Stillwater River, which then carried it away to the south. In the north, a multitude of creeks picked up the runoff and channeled it into the sprawling Great Miami River, one of the largest in the state. And in the northeast, the temperamental Mad River carried away excess precipitation. These four streams had a common destination. Within less than 1 mile, all four converged inside the city limits of Dayton, a city of 130,000. There was a tragic peculiarity, however, in the geography of this sprawling industrial metropolis. Just after entering the city, the Great Miami River was joined by the Stillwater, and here the channel bed between levees was 800 feet wide. About a quarter of a mile downstream, at the eastern edge of the downtown business district, the Mad River joined the larger stream at a sharp bend. But here the channel was only 700 feet wide. Less than a half a mile downstream, the Great River was joined by Wolf Creek, and here the levees were just 600 feet apart. Finally, where the Great Miami passed the city limits to the south, now a much larger river than where it had entered, it flowed in a channel only 500 feet wide. It was as if, in some perversity of humor, man and nature had conspired to make Dayton's river system upside down, 300 feet narrower where it left the city than where it entered. To further compound the hazard of such an arrangement, the converging rivers formed a great S curve, with the treacherous base of that S rimming the downtown area. Hindsight can make experts of even the most obtuse, but it is nevertheless astounding that so few people in the city seemed aware of its precarious position. It was almost unbelievably good fortune that devastating floods had not inundated the city regularly through the years. True, the lowlands surrounding it, as well as small low sectors within the city, often became flooded, but this was generally shrugged off as an unfortunate but unavoidable facet of life here. The greater portion of the city, it was argued, was protected with fine earthen levees that could and would prevent serious flooding. In fact, even that tremendous downpour of 1866, which had swiftly sent the river up past flood level, had caused the only truly significant inundation of the city's history, and then due to these fine levees, the downtown area had been covered with only 4 feet of water for part of one day before it abated. No one could conceive of a harder rain than that hitting the Dayton area. With when those three great masses collided, however, a sustained rainfall occurred, which deposited an average of nearly 9 inches of water on every foot of that 2,500 square miles of territory. It amounted to a staggering total of 3,920,400,000,000 gallons of water. One has to make a comparison to appreciate just how much water that is. Niagara Falls, which discharges 1,590,000 gallons of water every second, would have to take just short of 28 full days to equal what fell here. That is enough water to fill a hole in the ground measuring 25 miles in length, a mile in width, and 25 feet in depth. Unable to be absorbed into the already saturated ground, this fantastic volume of water began following the pronounced slope of the land to the south, the runoff quickly growing from a trickle to a stream to a roaring wash, and finally to a rampaging of torrent in each of the four rivers. These four great torrents, each traveling at approximately 25 miles per hour, met at 7 a.m. on March 25th, 1913, inside the city limits of Dayton, Ohio. It was a time of terror, and this is the story of what happened during that dreadful week.